lady who's going to be on stage in just a couple of minutes from now has an absolutely fabulous introductory line that she has during her stand-up comedy acts, which has made her famous all over the United States right now. She says, if there was an oppression Olympics, I would be a gold medalist. She says, I'm Palestinian, I'm female, I'm Muslim, I'm a virgin, and I live in New Jersey. Maysoon Zayid has taken comedy and turned it on its head. She has looked for her source material to her own life's experiences. She has cerebral palsy, like she says she's Palestinian. And she's gotten people all over the United States to actually come out and laugh about some of the most serious things, things like racism, things like disability, things like Islamophobia. She's currently going to be in a documentary called The Muslims Are Coming, where she's going to tour the United States and actually engage with people about these really, really serious issues you wouldn't really associate with comedy, but she's got people laughing about them. I don't know very much about Maysoon Zayid. I just met her off stage a short while ago, and she's in India for the first time. But what I can tell you for sure is that she's also a bit of a liar, because in all of her comic acts, she says, I'm not inspiring. You'll see for yourself in just a minute from now. Maysoon Zayid.
Okay, I'm going to cross my legs. Hello, Delhi. Those of you who know me know that's not enough. Hello, India. Hello. My name is Maysoon Zayid, and I am not drunk, but the doctor who delivered me was. So as a result, I shake all the time. I'm a little bit Muhammad Ali and a little bit Shakira. Now, having cerebral palsy in America is different than having cerebral palsy in India. And I just discovered that because I've never been to India before. But when I arrived last night, I realized having CP in India is great. People don't realize I'm shaking. They just think I'm saying, okay. I love it. And here's the thing, is I look Indian. So everyone speaks to me in Indian. And when I say I don't understand, they think I'm saying okay. But in America, people think I'm Italian. They don't notice that I'm Arab. And I almost didn't make it to India. I went to the airport with no visa. I didn't know that I needed a visa. And when I got to the airport, they said, Maysoon, you need a visa. And I said, no, I'm American. We can do anything we want. We can go anywhere. I don't need a visa. I'm not Indian. They said, that's why you need a visa. So I went the next day and I got a visa. And I had to get an emergency visa because I only had 24 hours to get to you guys. So I went to the emergency visas. It was very sad. There were many men sitting there, crying, weeping, their luggage with them. And I said, please get out of my way. I understand that your mother died, but I need to make jokes. And so here I am. So thank you, India. Does anyone else in the audience have cerebral palsy? Would you like to have it? It's actually fantastic because I burn calories all the time. I can eat whatever I want and stay skinny because I just burn it off. Cerebral palsy is not genetic. It's not a birth defect. You can't catch it. Nobody put a curse on my mother's uterus, and it didn't happen because my parents are first cousins, which they are. It happened because of an accident on my birthday. But I don't want anyone in this room to ever feel bad for me because I'm disabled. Because at some point in your life, you've dreamt of being disabled. Yeah, you have. Come on a journey with me. You're at the airport, waiting at customs. And what do you see? Me flying by in my wheelchair, cutting the line. It's a blast. So growing up, I was the youngest of 4 girls. And my father didn't think that God would be so cruel as to curse him with another girl. So when I was born, they only had one name for me. They wanted to name me Muhammad, after the prophet. But when my father saw that he had a girl, they decided to name me Muhammadiyah, the female version of Muhammad. Luckily, the doctors came in and told them that I was going to die. And they were afraid to waste such a great name on a dead baby. So instead, they named me Maysoon. I want to tell you about my mom and dad. My mom is stunning, beautiful. She looks like Julia Roberts. My dad looks like Saddam Hussein. And the way they met is actually really, really, really romantic. People, by the way, I'm Palestinian. Any Palestinians? So when I got to India, I was very specific about saying I'm Palestinian, because in America, my girlfriends get confused, and they don't know what that means. So whenever I go to visit Palestine, because I go every summer, whenever I go to the airport, my friends get very concerned. And they look at me and they say, Maysoon, are you scared? Are you scared to go to Pakistan? And I'm like, yes, I'm terrified, which is why I'm going to Palestine. So everyone in America thinks I'm saying Pakistan when I'm saying Palestine. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, I'm not afraid to go to Palestine. I'm not afraid to go to my own country. I'm afraid of going to the American airport. And this is why. Because when I walk into an American airport, security sees an Arab. And you may say to yourself, oh, Maysoon, how do they know you're an Arab? I will tell you how. I have the kind of facial hair that no waxing in the world can deal with. But security doesn't just see an Arab, they see a shaking Arab. And they're like, that chick is nervous. So now I'm a shaking Arab. And my dad likes to drop me off at the airport. And as I said, he looks like Saddam Hussein. So now I'm a shaking Arab being dropped off by Saddam Hussein. And my dad doesn't know how to say goodbye, have a nice trip. No, he must invoke the name of Allah at all times. So now I'm a shaking Arab with Saddam Hussein screaming, Allah ma'ash, Allah jawzat, Allah yukhzit. And before you can say jihad, which is not a word you should ever say in an American airport, I'm on the next plane to Guantanamo Bay. Which might not be that bad, because apparently Obama's going to close it in 2010. Any Obama fans? Do I have Obama fans? We'll get to that. I'm just waiting for the drone. It's going to come. I'm a moving target. He'll never get me. Yeah. So, but my mom and dad, when people think of Arabs, when people think of South Asians, they don't think of us as being romantic. But the way my parents met is one of the most romantic stories in the world. They're first cousins. My dad says that he knew the second he saw my mom that she would be his wife. And I said, Daddy, how did you know? And he said, your grandfather, he told me. Because in my village, that's the way we roll. We have a saying, garbage from your family is better than gold from elsewhere. And so what we do is, a lot of Palestinians live in America because we got kicked out. And so what we do is every summer we gather all the girls and all the guys and we take them back to my village in Palestine so that we can arrange marriages. And the men are like 27, 28, 29. The girls are 15, 16, 17. And we put the men in a circle and the women in a circle, and we have them dance around each other, you know? And when the music stops, whoever is across from you, that's your destiny. Now this summer, when my cousin Amar saw who was in front of him, he just looked and went, "Oh, hell no." And his dad was like, "Hell no? How can you say hell no? This is your destiny." And he was like, "Dad, I can't." And his father was like, "You can and you're gonna." And he was like, "It's my sister." So I spent my whole life going back to Palestine every single summer. And my grandmother used to love to tell me the story of how my dad was born, because I was born in a state-of-the-art hospital, and you can see how well that turned out. My dad, who was born in the middle of a field of sheep, and there's actually no record of his actual birth date, just my grandmother telling the story. She would say, "I was so tired, and I did not want to go feed the sheep. But your grandpa," he says to me, "Wife, go feed the sheep." So I went. There I am, feeding the sheep, saying, "Yalla, come on, hurry up." And then there was a big splash. And I said, "Oh, no." And then I had your daddy, and I took him, and I wrapped him in my dress, and I go home. And when I showed him to your grandfather, he said, "Wife, go make me dinner." And then she would go on to tell me exactly what she cooked, as if like raising a baby, giving birth to a baby and cooking in the same day was nothing. So I'm a big fan of the Middle East. I have so much to tell you guys, so I'm going to start talking about my dad. My dad taught me how to walk when I was 5 years old. Most people with cerebral palsy don't walk at all. But my mom and dad had a mantra, a saying, a quote that we lived by. My dad would always say to me, "You can do it. Yes, you can." They didn't believe in can't. Anything my sisters did, I did. So if my sisters were mopping the floor, I was mopping the floor. If my sisters went to public school, my parents would sue the school system and make sure that I went too. And when it came to the summer, my parents would send us all back to Palestine. I spent my summers growing up in a war zone because my father was afraid that if we didn't go back and visit every year, we would forget our roots and grow up to be Madonna. I used to love going to Palestine in the summer when I was a little kid, even though there was an army, because in the summer we had weddings. And when I was 5, 6 years old, you go to a wedding, it's so much fun. You drink cola, you get candy, it's great. When I turned 17, 18, weddings stopped being fun because my aunt would come up to me and she would say, "You're next, you're next, you're next." Then when I turned 25, she looked at me and went, "It's okay. Your sister's kids, they're going to take care of you. You're not going to die alone and be eaten by the dogs." Then I turned 27, and she said, "Just marry an American, but make sure he converts." Then when I was 30, she looked at me and she went, "Just tell me, are you gay?" But this summer I got to get back at her. We were walking at a funeral, and I turned around and looked at her, and I said, "Auntie, you're next. You're next. Have you see you're next." By round of applause, where are my single ladies? Single ladies. Are there any single ladies here? Clap for me if you're single. Where are my married ladies? We're going to try this one more time. Single ladies? Married ladies? See, they can barely clap anymore. They're like surviving. Single ladies, if you would like to catch a husband, I can help you. Because I turned 33 last year, and it was my Jesus year, so I decided I needed to either get crucified or married, because they're the same. But I had a problem. I couldn't get married like all my cousins, because whenever I do the circle dance, I fall, and they skip over me. And I can't go on the internet to the, dating sites because typing is not my thing. So I thought about it, and I was like, where can a girl with cerebral palsy catch a husband? And I figured it out. You want to know where I went to catch my husband? I went to Gaza. And the reason I went to Gaza is because they have no place to run. It's an open-air prison, you see. Yeah. So what I did was I took my American passport and I framed it in a big gold frame. And I walked through the refugee camp wearing my big gold-framed American passport saying, "You want a visa, baby?" And my husband was like, "Yeah." So I was like, "Pack up your tent, let's go." And guys, you're not going to believe this. He is Palestinian, Muslim, never married, no kids, no disease. He's like a Palestinian unicorn. So now, I was born and raised in America, and in America, when you get proposed to, it's a very big deal. So I explained to my fiance, I said, you know, you need to propose to me because my friends have all these great stories. Like, I was in a hot air balloon, and he wrote my name in fireworks. And I was like, I found him in a refugee camp. He is mine now. So I told him, you know, here's a ring, because he was a starving refugee. I had to buy the ring. I said, here's a ring. You have to surprise me. And then I waited and waited and waited. And I was like, oh my God, did he steal the ring? And then finally one day, he met me at an Israeli checkpoint. And he dropped to one knee like this. And I was like, great, now they're going to shoot him. And I walked across the checkpoint, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and everything disappeared. And I was like, wow, this is really happening. And he held out the ring, and he said, here, take it. And I thought, yes, he speaks English. Now, when you get a fresh off the boat refugee and try to bring him to America, it's like trying to bring a shaky stand-up comic to India. You need a visa. And I feel like the American consulate doesn't understand Arab men. Because when my husband went in for his interview, the very first question they asked was, do you love her? And he looked at them and said, that's none of your goddamn business. Now, my dad was thrilled. My dad has been my champion since I was a little girl. And my dad taught me how to walk when I was 6 years old by placing my feet on his toes and just walking. Another trick that he liked to use was he would dangle a dollar bill in front of me and have me chase it. My inner stripper was very strong, and I learned how to walk. But my dad also spent his entire life making sure that his daughters grew up, you know, with honor. So there was a bunch of activities that we were not allowed to do. We couldn't ride horses or seesaws or any of that. So the night before my wedding, I know India Today is looking at me going, what is she talking about? The night before my wedding, my dad came over my house, and he looked at me and he said, Daddy, because he always called me Daddy, we need to talk. And he looked really upset. And I was like, did the refugees steal everything and leave? Do we have to call Homeland Security? And he's like, no, he's still here. So he looked at me and he said, Daddy, I begged your mother to talk to you. But she said no, so I have to do it. Daddy, everything I told you was bad is now good. And I was like, what? Can I eat bacon? And he was like, no, you still cannot do that. And I said, okay. And he said, Daddy, the man, he has something you don't have. And when he wants to make a son, God forbid a daughter, but when he wants to make a son, he has to take it. And I was like, no, please. And he was like, yes, Daddy, yes. I'm so sorry. And I said, no, I don't need you to tell me this. I know. And he went, you know? You know? You know how? Oh my God, oh my goodness. So he's about to have a heart attack. I'm trying to explain to him, I only know from watching on TV. Now, I had always hated weddings because in America, the bride throws her bouquet at the single women. and you're supposed to catch it. And whoever catches it is next to get married. Well, I can't catch things. So I've been hit in the head with several bouquets during my life. But I decided to do something different for my wedding. For my wedding, instead of throwing the flowers backwards, I threw them forward. Because even though I'm palsy and I can't catch, I'm Palestinian and we're really good at throwing stuff. Nobody warned me that getting married comes with a mother-in-law. Why are you so angry? Why? Any mother-in-laws in the audience? Round of applause. Where are my mother-in-laws? Just one? Oh, there's one. See, you know where the rest of them are? They're torturing their daughter-in-laws. That's where they are. My mother-in-law is a really, really fun woman. She has a pet name for me. She calls me Monster from Hell. And she's really funny. I don't think that she's trying to kill me. I just think that she wouldn't mind if I died. Because this is what happens. Do you guys have Skype? We're big on Skype. So I love Skype. And I stopped loving it when my mother-in-law learned how to use Skypey, as she calls it. Because every time she calls, she asks me the same question. Are you pregnant? You look fat. Are you pregnant? You have a belly. Are you knocked up? I'm like, how'd you learn that? And I say to her the same thing every time. I can't have a child because if I do, I'll die. So me and my husband are going to adopt. Round of applause for adoption. I told someone this morning, I told the girl who was doing my hair and makeup this morning that I was going to adopt, and she said, no, you can rent a womb here. You can. I don't want to rent a womb. I'm going to adopt. But my mother-in-law, she can't grasp the concept. So every single time she Skypes me, she says the same thing. Are you pregnant? Are you pregnant? And I say to her, Amto, you know if I get pregnant, I'll die. And you know what she says to me? Oh, just try it once. So I'm going to get a little serious now. Is that okay? In America, my dream growing up was to become an actress. This was my only dream in life. I wanted to become an actress. And in America, they don't hire ethnic people, brown people. Whenever I saw an Arab on TV, they were being played by an Indian. And whenever I saw an Indian on TV, they were being played by Ben Kingsley. So Hollywood is not a fan of brown people. But I'm not just brown. I have a disability. I shake all the time. And the disabled are the largest minority in the world, but we are the most invisible. We are underrepresented in Hollywood. We are underrepresented in government. And it's much easier for societies to forget we exist. So my goal in America is to try and get more positive images of disability on television, more honest representations. And this came from the fact that I grew up really spoiled and lucky. I had a very, very beautiful life. Yes, my father tried to heal me all the time, and sometimes that was painful because they would put hot cups on my back and I had to drink camel's milk. And one time they dunked me in the Dead Sea and I was like, it's burning, and I thought it was working. But in general, I had this great childhood. My parents treated me exactly like my sisters. They weren't afraid to push me. They weren't afraid to absolutely, unequivocally demand that the people around them treated me as an equal. This is rare, and it needs not to be. We need to understand that people are more than just their disability. I'm more than my hair color. I'm more than my eye color. I'm more than my religion, and I'm certainly more than my disability. But we as a society tend to reduce people to just that. So when I go to audition in Hollywood, they don't realize that I could play the wacky best friend or that I could catch a Palestinian unicorn and marry him. They think, oh, poor thing, she's disabled, how can we heal her? And when you see disabilities in movies, quite often the disabled people are being healed. Like, unless you fix us, we're not worth having around. That makes me think of something. I would love to try Bollywood. Since Hollywood hates me, what about Bollywood? I have a bunch of movie names in mind. We could do Maysoon Masala. We could do My Name is Maysoon Khan. Slumdog Maysoon. I mean, it's an endless possibility. But so the reality is this. If you know someone who has a disabled child, it's very, very important to not feel bad for them, to not constantly be praising them. Oh, you're so brave, you're so great, you raised this child. Every child has a problem. Every child has issues. We cannot focus on one aspect of who a person is and make it eliminate everything else about them. So I'm really, really blessed and privileged to be in India today because I've only been here for 24 hours. I've never visited before, but I think I can say that this is a society that needs to put its hand in my hand and help change the way the disabled are treated. Let's make this a more accessible world. Let's make it a safer world. And let's make sure that the disabled that are the main target of violence in the world are no longer victims and are applauded. So I will end today the way that I end all of my shows. My father only got to see me perform once, and it was me performing for a man who floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee, has Parkinson's, and shakes just like me, Muhammad Ali. So it was the only time that my father saw me perform live, and it was the best performance of my life. So since that day, I always dedicate every single performance to my father. Allah yarhamah, God rest his soul. I dedicate this to Maysoon Zayid, and I say to you, India, thank you so much for having me. My name is Maysoon Zayid. Next year in Jerusalem, inshallah.
Okay, questions? Anybody? Because I've got some of my own, so if nobody's going to ask, I am.
There's one.
Okay, Maysoon, I'm going to start this.
There's one.
Go for it. Can we give her a mic, please?
How are the challenges facing women who are handicapped different than men?
Could you hold the mic closer to your mouth?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. First of all, it was lovely hearing you and very inspiring.
Thank
you are
you.
a liar because you're certainly inspiring. How are the challenges facing women who are handicapped different than men, or are they much the same?
I really think it's more difficult to be a male with a disability than a female. It's interesting to say that because in general in life, it's always more difficult to be a woman. I say, you know, we're the largest minority also. But with disability, I feel like it's much more difficult to be a male because so much about being male is linked to being powerful, being strong, being, you know, the master of your house. And I think that disability really challenges that image. So with me, I feel lucky that I'm a girl with a disability because I think it's easier to just be cute and sexy and have people forget it. But I also think it's interesting because I grew up doing like stand-up comedy in the Middle East. I've been doing stand-up comedy since 2002 in Palestine, Jordan, Dubai. And people always thought, like, how do you do that as a woman? And the way that I do it is there really was no stand-up in the Middle East before I started doing it. So they didn't know it was a male thing. So I was really lucky to kind of be able to excel as a woman in entertainment in the Middle East in ways that I couldn't in America where there's a stigma. Yes.
Gentleman in blue there, yeah.
Hi, Maysoon. It was brilliant hearing your story. I have a younger brother who's quadriplegic after a spinal cord injury in a road traffic accident. So my question to you is, like you were mentioning, that never treat disabled differently. So what do you want the government and the society to change their attitude? In what way, so that this is no longer a single largest neglected minority?
I think one of the very first things that we can do, which is easy, really easy, is to talk to disabled people. Quite often, like if I see you with your brother, quite often people will talk to you instead of addressing him. The assumption is that if we have a physical disability, we also have a mental disability and we can't comprehend anything. So I think the number one thing is talk to the disabled person, communicate with them, see what they want, see what they dream of. Don't think of them as a shell of a human being. As for the government, we need to look at disability not as a burden and as something that enhances the society. So they need to look at easy ways to create crosswalks, ramps, accessibility, ways that not only the disabled in this country can function, but those visiting India can also function. Because right now, I can't get across the street. I have to stay right here. Like, I can't actually go anywhere. And I think those are the two things. Number one, treating them as equals, as humans, making sure that they have access to education. Don't say they can't. Try it. See how far they go. They may not graduate college, but if you can get them to read and write, that's something. If you can't get them to do any of it, believe me, just listening to reading is good for the brain. So we just need to treat them the way we treat others, and we need to look at accessibility as something that enhances and not as a burden.
Maysoon, I'm going to take the liberty of asking you the last question.
The last question.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, did I talk too long?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think everybody wanted you to talk more.
Okay. I'll be here telling jokes all night. The ones I'm not allowed to tell on stage.
In your experience, Maysoon, has anyone ever, told you that comedy about Islamophobia, racism, disability has made people less prejudiced?
Yeah.
Does it make people less prejudiced?
Yeah. So I don't think I'm changing the world in any way, but I do know for a fact that when I started doing stand-up comedy in the Middle East, I had a lot of people come up to me and say, "You are the first functional disabled person I've ever met." And I know that I changed the way that they're raising their child, that they're treating their niece or nephew or a friend that has a disability. I know that that's changed. In America, it's a bigger challenge because when I'm battling Islamophobia in America, it's really difficult for people to understand that I do practice my faith, I respect my faith, because my hair shows, my arms show. They think that I'm a Jack Muslim, and I'm not. So it's interesting in America to try to challenge a stereotype that's also kind of a stereotype that we hold. So I think I've had more of an effect helping the disabled than I have with Islamophobia, which is much more difficult. And I also think I am single-handedly going to be responsible for freeing Palestine. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, Maysoon Zayid.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please put your hands together for Maysoon Zayid, one of the most inspirational people that we've had right here on the India Today Conclave. Let the claps go, and I'd like to call upon at this point of time Rekha Puri, Chairperson, Vasant Valley School, to come up on stage and present a small token of our appreciation to one of the most wittiest, inspirational people we've had on the India Today Conclave.
And she wears high heels. I forgot to talk about that.
And the plug.
The high heels, a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.